This video will go over the maintenance of the Alonzo Taylor Model 1 clock. This is the tower clock that is installed in the north tower of the church. This was built around 1864, and it's unknown what the install date was. That still needs to get researched in the archives of the church. But today I'm going to go over how to both advance, retard the time, how to speed up the clock and slow down the clock, and some of the oiling and other maintenance required. This is a picture of the clock and the two different gear trains associated with the clock. On the right hand side, that is the time movement. On the left hand side, that is called the chime. So all of your gear train associated with the chime mechanism would be over on this side, and over here this is what is regulating time. Now the clock, as I came up today, I realized that the clock is running slow. And when the clock runs slow, what you want to do is shorten the pendulum, which is going to be, you can see the pendulum swinging in the back here. And the goal would be to shorten this so that the pendulum actually has a shorter swing, and it's going to then cause the escapement to move fractionally just a bit faster, allowing the clock then to speed up a bit. The easiest way to do this is to take this adjustment knob at the top of the pendulum. And again, I want to shorten this, so I'm going to turn it clockwise. And I'm going to turn it clockwise about 45 or so degrees. And that will shorten the pendulum. And I have some stats on how much that will shorten it back at my desk that I can look up, and I'll add to the video afterwards. To advance the time, currently the clock is about 4 minutes slow. So what I want to do is advance the time, and I do that by pulling this escapement back and out of the way of this here, which is the escapement wheel. And when you do this, you need two hands, because if you disengage the escapement, this escapement wheel is going to begin spinning very fast, freewheeling, and the clock is going to advance ahead about a minute or two every second. So what you need to do is you need to hold on to this. But the very first thing we're going to do, if you do need to make a time adjustment to the clock, the very first step in a time adjustment would be to actually stop the pendulum. Easiest way to stop the pendulum is just to put your hand on the pendulum and just gently slow down the swinging until the pendulum is no longer swinging. At that point, if you look back on the escapement, you can see that it is no longer, the escapement is no longer providing energy to the escapement wheel, and therefore now the clock is stopped. The next thing I do is I remove, this is a little bit of safety tape that I have to prevent this escapement arm or the escapement ladder from pulling away from the escapement wheel. Back in the 90s, we had a couple of times where the clock was just freewheeling because this had loosened up and had pulled away from that escapement wheel. Now, whenever you're doing a time adjustment, you really need to hold on to this here. You have to hold on to the escapement wheel when you back the escapement ladder away. So I'm going to pull that ladder away, and you can simply see how that just glides forward to back. So let's pull that away. I'm going to advance the clock. I will simply look at the clock face. In this case, it needs to advance about 4 minutes. Stop there, come back over. Now, when I re-engage the escapement ladder, you want to be very careful that you don't bend any of the pins. So I'm going to set the escapement wheel in the pins so that they don't conflict. You can see now that the pin is sitting on top of that ladder and it's right on the edge of one of those escapement ladder pads, which is exactly where you want it to be. At this point, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tighten up on the tightening knobs for the escapement ladder. Tighten that down good and snug. And now I'm going to reapply the tape, and I'm going to pause the video to do that. Now you can see I have the tape behind the escapement ladder, so this can't accidentally back away. Again, just make sure that's good and tight. The next thing you can do then is to restart the clock. And again, you're going to start to put gentle pressure on the pendulum itself to start to swing. Now, the direction I start to swing in comes back to the ladder. If you see where the pin is, you want to just start this in a way that you're not going to bind any of the pins of the escapement wheel. And what you're doing is, or what I'm doing right now, is just gently swinging the pendulum to get the momentum going again and the energy back into the escapement wheel. So once again, the clock is running. We've advanced the time about 4 minutes.